Look, I'm wearing pants. It's 63 degrees outside. It's gonna be 100 all next week. Welcome back to my box fan build. In this video, I'm replacing all of the steering components with the exception of the gearbox and the center link. So tie rods, pitman arm, idler arm. And that will complete all of the chassis work to the van. The steering, at least from what I can tell, the tie rods are still good. But I want to replace all these parts now while I'm doing all the rest of the work to the van, so I don't have to do it in the future, at least the near future. I got a shop. I'm not living my dream life yet. Now's the time to get it done. So that's what this video is, pretty much just finishing the front end of the van, and then I'll be moving on to doing a tune-up. First thing I'm gonna do is kind of just finish what I started in the wheel wells here. I'm just gonna clean and paint these caliper brackets, paint my calipers, clean up this wheel opening here and possibly paint that too, and then get those kind of splash shields back on in here. And then I'll take the tie rods and stuff off. I'm just gonna pretty much drop the entire steering link down and get it out of the van and kind of reassemble it with the new parts. So on these $1,200 lift knuckles I bought, they put two holes in the back. One of them's threaded, and that is supposed to be so you can mount the retainer for your brake hose. But they did it backward. And the only way to get this retainer on is if I somehow separated it from my brake hose, because on the old ones it's supposed to go up here on a flat portion of the old knuckle. Here's your steering linkage over here. This is called the idler arm. That's your tie rod. We're looking at the passenger side here. This is the center link. And then over here you've got what's called the pitman arm, and that's your gearbox up there. And your steering column connects to the gearbox. The gearbox has your hydraulic power steering lines going to it. So we're going to remove this whole steering center link here by just taking off these two super rusty nuts and then just knocking it out with the hammer, basically. Get this whole thing out of the van, disassemble it, clean it up, paint it. go. Yeah. Yeah. Alright, here's the steering linkage. I'm going to remove the tie rods and try to remember which side is which, because I intend on matching the length on the new ones just to make it as drivable as possible to get it to the alignment shop. Then I'm going to take this center link and clean it up with the wire wheel and get it painted. Alright, I got my brakes reassembled and I went ahead and cleaned the wheel wells. In this van's previous life, somebody drove through like fresh asphalt tar because it's just sprayed all up in the wheel wells and under the rockers and everything. Cosmetically, I think it would look a lot better to paint the wheel wells white again, but since that's already going on under there, I'm gonna go ahead and coat them with this truck bed liner that I bought for my front bumper, and I'll have to pick up another can for that, but that'll just be easier and it'll be a more durable finish anyway. So as that's drying, I'm gonna go ahead and reassemble the steering linkage with the new tie rods and just get that all ready to put back in the van. The next step will be to get the pitman arm and idler arm off of the van. Now, to remove the pitman arm, I was looking at it, you have to actually unbolt the gearbox from the frame rail, which I did one in my Chevy truck and it was pretty much the same way. So it's not really an easy thing to do. And the arm itself has to be pulled off of the gearbox. And after inspecting it a little further, after removing all this stuff, the gearbox does have some play in it. So really, if I'm doing all this work, I should replace the gearbox too. But I'm not going to because they're like 300 bucks and I really don't have the time to wait for parts to come. So I'm just gonna put a new pitman arm on what's there. Idler arm's easy, it's just a couple bolts on the frame. It's actually two pieces. There's the arm itself and then there's the like the mount for it, which is another pivot point that you need to grease and service regularly. Alright, so this is the steering center link. I got it cleaned up and painted with tractor paint. Looks really good. And then here's the new tie rods. Now what I did here, took the old tie rods and I wrote L and R on them with a paint marker. That way I know which way to put them, or which measurement to match, and then which side to put them on. On this, it's kind of, you got to look at it, but this is down, so it mounts like that. So this would be right, This would be left, pretty sure. And the reason I'm attempting to match the length of these is just to get it like close enough where I can drive it to the alignment shop. If you just put them together without at least attempting to get it close, your toe could be so off whack that the van ain't even drivable. Like your tires could be squealing and fighting each other all the way down the road. And since I am putting brand new tires on this, they're gonna have a lot of grip. You know, the rubber's gonna be nice and sticky. These parts are identical. There is no left and right on these. What I'm gonna do is get a little bit of anti-seize on these threads here, which just kinda, it'll be good for the alignment shop, you know. Now some guys say like count your threads, you know. If your new parts are the exact same design overall of the old parts, then you can do that. But I like to just measure from end to end because there could be variations. They could thread it further than the old part, or it could be just a different shape altogether. And I'm not gonna tighten these up super tight yet. That was way too much. Because I'll have to kind of turn them to get this oriented facing up when I get it in the van to go into the steering knuckle. So I'm just going to get them kind of put together loosely for now. So you just thread them in. And on some vehicles, see, this is a pretty good design right here, because you can just turn right here to adjust your length, or right there, you could just grab it with the wrench. That's probably what the alignment shop does, just grabs it right there and turns it, and then this will rotate. But on some vehicles, there's an inner and outer tie rod end, and they look identical. But one is like left-hand thread, like the reverse threaded. So then you have a center, what's called an adjusting sleeve, between the two tie rods, and you turn on that. And if you turn it one way, it gets longer, and if you turn it the other way, it gets shorter because the threads are opposite. So we're going to do right. So basically what I'm doing here is, and to make it easy on me, I'm going to stick a straight edge. So you kind of put your parts up against that, and then you want to just try to get the overall length the same. So I'm already longer, or shorter, I mean. So we're going to come back out. Actually going to get two straight edges on here. You can just use a tape measure. You don't got to get all fancy with straight edges like I'm doing, but and I'm going to go to the end of the socket, not the threads. So I need to go a little longer. And I'm gonna declare that close enough. So then you take this nut right here, just kind of tighten it up to the outer tie rod end. That's what kind of locks it in place. And the way this sits in the van is sort of like that. Your pit idler arm and pitman arm kind of studs come down that way. Then these drop down a little and run over to the wheel. That just sits in there like so. And on these you have the nut, but it also has a grease fitting on the end of this stud. It's kind of unique, actually. Pretty unique design. And I'm gonna get these kind of snugged up, but not super tight yet because, well, I guess I can turn. I'll tighten them up because you can turn these. There's a ball joint here, so we'll go ahead and tighten it all up. And my crescent wrench is just barely big enough. Nice. Get all these nice shiny parts all put together. It's only going to be shiny for about a month. Okay, so my crescent wrench was too fat. It's getting seized up in there, so we're gonna just get that back out of there. Maybe I'll get, I don't know, a regular wrench. That's pretty big though. See if I can match that with something. I don't have a wrench that big. I have channel locks though. Really filthy ones. Went to Menards yesterday, and I normally buy my brake cleaner at Walmart because it's the cheapest place to get it. But this stuff here at Menards was cheaper. It was like $3.29 or $3.69 or something a can. If you go to an auto parts store, it's like $7 a can at least. It is not cheap. I don't know what the heck they're thinking, but... Okay, so I just got this. I'll get it tight, why not? Get it on there good and tight. Now, we're gonna put the grease fitting in the end of this. Just like that. I also bought more grease because I'm gonna need it for all these new parts. Take my tiny crescent wrench, just snug that up. And then on the tie rod end itself, grab the parts that came with that and see, they only give you one option here, and that's a right angle. Which, if you think about the way it sits in the van, so this is the right side, you kind of want it facing towards the front of the van to make it easy. But you can only thread them on like one way, really, because the threads bottom out, you know. Now the tie rod end comes with the locking nut, but if you're replacing the inner two, then you end up with an extra. So just throw that in your spare bolts bin, you know. All right, so now I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the other side. So we're going to take our left tie rod, put the new one together, and try to match the length as good as we can. Get this thing all assembled, ready to put in the van. It's going to be a while, not for you, but in real time, because I'm going to wire brush and paint the whole frame under there. Then get the Pitman arm and idler arm on. And then we'll get this put back under the van. So I went too far again. We're already shorter than the stock original. And I do believe these are original, these tie rods. I think the sway bar end links may have been replaced, but nothing else really. Ball joints were definitely original. We figured that out. Okay, so we gotta come out a little bit. Now we're a little bit too long. Nope, we're still too short by about 1/8 of an inch, or one rotation. A little bit more. There, that's about perfect. I don't like buying new car parts, but installing them is fun. It's like, yay, new stuff. It's Christmas for the van. Yeah, I used way too much anti-seize on there. There's memes about that, you know, using too much anti-seize on stuff. Okay, and we'll just flip this around so we can work on it over here. Kind of digging the black, red, and silver scheme, you know. It's pretty cool looking. I'm gonna take a paint marker. I don't know if you can do it backward or not, but I'm gonna write an R and an L. Just so I put this back on the right way. Again, I don't know if you can, but just to make sure I don't do something silly like that. Because the center link does look pretty, it's symmetrical. It's like the same on both sides. So, okay, I am going to get under the van and start the super fun process of removing the rest of the stuff. And the Pitman arm is going to be the hardest part of this job. And really, you could get away with just doing your tie rods. Those two components don't go bad as often as you would think. But I'm just kind of weird and wanted all of it to be new, even though I'm not changing my steering gear. But I'll still show you how to do it. It's just a lot of laying on your back and wrestling things, you know. So for the idler arm, it's just these two bolts to remove it from the frame. And I'm going to take the whole assembly off and put it together on the bench. For the steering gear, it's quite a bit more involved. I'm going to attempt to leave everything connected, like the steering shaft and the lines and stuff, but it bolts through the frame from over here. There's 3 big heavy-duty bolts. I'm just going to undo those now and see what I can get away with. But basically, you have to use a puller right there. You have to take that nut off and then pull the arm off. There's a special puller for these. I don't know if the one I have is going to be big enough, but I can do it with a jaw puller. But it's pressed onto a spline shaft, which I'll show you here. Make sure your wheel is straight, so let's see. Okay. 1, 2, 3, so 1.5. So that's center. So I'm gonna try to leave that alone. It doesn't lock when which is unusual. Usually with the key off, the wheel will lock, but it doesn't. So just gotta be mindful of that. The nut on the pitman arm is huge, and I was able to remove it because I have this front wheel drive axle nut set. But it's like, I think it's about whatever the equivalent of 33 millimeter is. I used a 34, which was a little loose, but yeah, that's a big guy. There's a thing called a pitman arm puller, and I had one, but it's nowhere to be found. So I'm going to attempt to use this 3-jaw puller to remove the old pitman arm. Basically, you just gotta pull it off of the steering gear. And they say to not reuse the nut. I don't know why, but the new one didn't come with one, so I'm planning on reusing that giant nut that was on there. But if I can get it off, good. If not, I'll rethink my decision about replacing this altogether, or go buy a pitman arm puller, you know. You might notice that my front bumper is missing. Stay tuned. Broke the puller. Alright, for now I'm just going to shift gears and work on cleaning and painting everything I can underneath the van. All that's left, you know, the whole front of the frame and the cross member and the bottom of the lower control arms, pretty much everything that I haven't already cleaned and painted. And then I'll worry about getting a pitman arm puller later. Alright, so every inch of this van's chassis that I can access has been cleaned and painted with tractor paint. And I've done this before. I used to have a 4x4 Chevy truck, but it was my work truck and I had to drive it here in the city in the Midwest in the wintertime. And what happens with that is if there's even a dusting of snow in the forecast, they put like thousands of tons of salt and liquid brine on the streets. And then about 30 to 45 minutes after the first snowflake hits the ground, you get a notification on your phone that emergency services are overwhelmed and no longer responding to accidents without injuries. But I know that I won't be driving this van in those conditions. So all of this work that I just did under the van should last at least several years, and that feels good. Now you might be wondering, why did I brush it on instead of spraying it all? And the simple answer for that is cost. That gallon of tractor paint cost 47 bucks. And I was able to do the entire van with it. And I still have about a half a gallon left. And on the very first video, I did most of the frame with, I bought a quart of that, plus like 4 or 5 spray cans of it for the hard to reach areas. Now you can put that stuff in a spray gun. You can get some enamel reducer, some thinner, you know, and spray it. But the nature of like the work I'm doing here, it's like a little bit here, a little bit there. That would have been kind of a pain in the butt having to clean out a spray gun every time. Why tractor paint? Well, it's farm and implement is what it's called. But just think about it. Think of the environment that tractors and implements live in. I mean, they're constantly exposed to the elements and they're constantly getting like scratched up and beat up and going through brush and weeds and stuff like that. So it's a really durable finish. I mean, I've been using Rust-Oleum on cars and vehicles forever, and it stays. You put it on, it stays there. It's good stuff. And you know, there's automotive finishes, there's undercoatings, but I mean, again, cost. That stuff's expensive. So, and the van looks freaking good. This is nice. My buddy Tom, who is really the star of this show, has a pitman arm puller, so I'll be borrowing that from him, but not right now. It's rush hour on Friday, so maybe in a couple hours I'll go pick that up from his shop and get that pitman arm replaced. What I'm going to do right now is paint my wheel wells, and I have an off-road custom bumper for the front of the van, and that's probably the next video you're going to see, or coming up soon on the channel, which Tom is also helping me with. But I went and bought truck bed coating for that, because I just felt obligated to do that with those off-road aftermarket bumpers. If I were to paint that with tractor paint, I mean, I think it would look good, but you gotta paint it with a crinkly textured finish. But I am gonna use a can of this. This stuff was 12 bucks a can at Menards to paint my wheel wells with. Because, like I said, somebody drove through like wet tar and sprayed it all over the wheel wells. And at this point, I don't feel like wire brushing or sanding all of that off just to put white Rust-Oleum on the wheel wells, even though that would look nice. It's a wheel well, so I'm gonna just go ahead and spray this right over all that other crap, and it should look good. I'm gonna scuff it up a little bit just with the Scotch-Brite, just to promote better adhesion, because all I did earlier is I drill brushed it with Dawn dish soap to get all the grease and dirt off. So, and I'm gonna just put some plastic over all my nice shiny new parts. I gotta wait about 20-30 minutes before I do any of that though, because all this tractor paint is still drying. Looks pretty good. Stuff reeks. Next time I use this, I'm gonna have to wear like a real respirator. But I like it. The tip clogged, and I ended up having to spray brake cleaner through the tip. But yeah, good stuff. This is a Pitman arm puller. Basically, it slides over this like so. Then you crank that down with an impact, and it'll pull this off of the stud, the shaft of the steering gear. And that's what I couldn't find earlier. I went and borrowed this from Tom. This one's nice. It's an actual like nice one. And then he also let me borrow a 2-jaw puller in case for whatever reason that wouldn't work, but this will do fine. So okay, let's get this done. Man, it looks nice under here. It's so clean. So clean and shiny. Black. It's not gonna work because these are too close together to go around the oil seal on the steering gear. And if this was my tool, I'd just grind them, but I'm gonna grab that 2-jaw puller. Oh, I grabbed the wrong socket. So I was laying under the van just now, and it spoke to me. The van did. Telepathically. Because it has a brain, and I'm psychic. And the van said, "Hey Dave, thanks for doing all this work to me. I'm really glad that you bought me. The next guy to come along would have just stuffed me full of lawnmowers and empty Mountain Dews and beat the crap out of me. So thanks. But hey, listen, stop trying to replace my Pitman arm. I don't need one. The one I got's just fine." And you know, you gotta respect the van's wishes, you know. It won't come off. I'd have to like heat it up and then I'd damage the gearbox. So the only correct way to proceed would be to replace the gearbox too, which I'm not gonna do at this point in time. Because the Pitman arm isn't bad. I'm just trying to replace it just on principle because I'm changing everything else, and you know, I like to do everything together, you know. So I'm gonna take this and just save it for a rainy day, because you know, one day maybe I will change the gearbox if it gets all loose and wore out on me. But and I only paid like 30 something bucks for this anyway, because you know, I know how to shop around. So what I did is bolted it all back together, and I sprayed it with some tractor paint, and I'm gonna grease it. So I mean, it'll be brand new practically anyway. I'm gonna go ahead and install the new idler arm now, and then get the whole steering linkage put back up in the van. Okay, so idler arm, basically the same thing as the Pitman arm, except the Pitman arm is splined to go in your steering gear. And there's three thicker splines, and that's why it was crucial to get the steering wheel straight, because when you go to put this on, you got to get it on the right way. Otherwise, you're gonna be all screwed up. Your van's not gonna steer both directions the same amount, and your steering wheel's never going to be straight. So, you know, I wanted to show you all that, but yeah, whatever. So here's the old idler arm, and this is not splined. It does not matter how you put this onto that, but you got to put this in the van the correct way. And as like all the ball joints and everything else, it says mount inboard right here. So inboard towards the inside of the vehicle. So this bolt goes towards the front. And then right here they got this little, hey, check this out, we gave you a hose for your grease fitting. So the grease fitting goes on the top right here, because this thing's full of grease. It's just, I don't know. I don't know how it works. It's magic. But you bolt the other end of this to the sway bar bushing on the frame. That way you have easy access for your grease gun. Pretty neat, right? So mount inboard. So that's inboard, and we're gonna go like that. Sure, looks about the same. And then, let's see. Because I bought both components, I have duplicates of the nut that goes right here, but it's this one. So we're just gonna zip that on there. And that's kind of big. I don't know if that's a 21 or... the end of this shaft here, the stud, is a hex. So you could put an Allen in there. We'll see if it turns. If it does, we'll put an Allen in it. That is bigger than 21. Not by much though. 24 is, oh, it is a 24. What do you know? I can actually look in here and see if... Sweet. Alright, this guy, I'm gonna have to take the hose off of the thing. This might be more trouble than it's worth if it won't thread in there easily. Because I can get pretty good access to the original location, so they're just trying to make it nice for you, but really I'm gonna have to get a skid plate for the front of the van. The plastic one that was there, the factory skid plate, is broken and missing on my van. So unless I go to the junkyard and get another one of them, or get a custom like aftermarket one, or make one with Tom, then this will actually be putting the grease fitting in a location where it could be damaged. But this is not threading in. There it goes. Oh, come on. Come on. Get in there. The threads are kind of janky on it. Yeah, I might just put the standard one on, guys, because it seems like, yeah, it would be neat, but also it's not threading on. So we're just gonna put, it gave you the option of the regular one, which threads right in because it's got taper on the end. So that's what we're gonna do. Trying to reinvent the wheel here, Dorman. Get your fanciness. There. All right, so now we just bolt this right back up to the frame. Alright, steering linkage. I wrote an L on this side and an R on this side. So we're going to go in over here like that. Stick it right back up here where it goes. It's probably going to fall off. Nothing's holding it. Castle nut for the idler arm, and I got to try to find the one. I think it was a crimp nut for the pitman arm. just like that. It's kind of smushed on the end, so it stays tight at all times. Yep, that's what it's supposed to be. Doesn't help that I beat on it with the hammer, so now it's removing it, but it's okay. It's fine. And then this one I think is a 24, so I'm gonna grab a wrench. Oh yeah. Nope, that is smaller. That's a 21. I knew that. There we go. And then this guy. Ooh. Ow. I pulled a muscle in my side. Walk it off. Walk it off. Okay. Whew. Okay, now put the tie rods on. Installation, reverser removal. So we just come in the bottom here, just like the old ones came out. Get the nut on there. I gotta say, these frickin' like washer nuts are just huge. I mean, look at the size of that thing. Pretty much takes up this whole flat part of the, is that a 24? Wow. These really are heavy duty, friggin', what size is that? I think that's a 22. These are really heavy duty parts. There we go. Now you do the same thing I was telling you in the last video, where you, as soon as it's starting to get tight on you, like this, then you gotta look at it, find where the hole is in the stud. So it's right here, so we're gonna ease into it. And I think I can try to get away with going one further, so. A little bit more. A little bit more. Too far. Perfect. And then you get your cotter pin in, which I had. No, I didn't. I didn't. And put the cotter pin towards the, like the open side towards the back, just so there ain't nothing anywhere close to the wheel or the brake rotor. It doesn't really matter though. They, you know, it's designed to have plenty of room for that. See, I fold them all the way around. I kind of wrap them around the nut so they can't rattle or shake or come loose or nothing. Alright, go do the other side. Okay, now we're getting close. I forgot my flashlight. Find the hole. Okay. A little bit. Perfect. Cotter pin somewhere. Oh, found it. I have a whole cotter pin assortment from Hobo Freight, but these are rugged duty cotter pins. You gotta use the good stuff, you know. And they all match. You gotta have everything match, you know. It's important. Come, hey, come on. Fingers. Come on, fingers. There we go. Oop. Just like that. And done. Very nice. Beautiful. Perfection. Okay. Don't lose our little cappy do. All right. Next step is to grease everything. I was at Menards yesterday and I got these rough towels. Rough. They're not that great, honestly. So I did buy a tube of grease. I always buy the red grease. It says high temp. That's why I buy it. Because you can use it on anything. Because I do think my grease gun is about to run out. But I'm not going to change it until I have to, because that's a messy job. But you have to grease the pitman arm, the idler arm mount, which is that thing that bolts to the frame that came with the little hose thing, and inner and outer tie rods. So there's 7 things to grease on just your steering linkage, and then your ball joints on each side. So 11 things total to grease the front end of your van. And I did grease the ball joints when I installed them, but I'm going to add a little more because one of them looks like it definitely needs a little bit more. So now that I know I won't run out, I'm just going to go to town with the grease gun and do it all. I ran out. Should probably be over the trash can, actually. Hey, look, it's the same exact grease. It's like I shop at Menards a lot. Alright, the last thing I gotta do to reassemble the van all the way is put these things back on. These little splash shields, or floppy doos. I'm gonna hit them with some tire foam though, just on the outside. Because we can't put some crusty old looking things in there with all our nice shiny new prettiness. Even though as soon as I drive on a dirt road or through a puddle, it'll all be crusty and these are directional. Pretty sure that is driver's side. I was right the first time. Maybe. Maybe not. Can caveman figure out Flappy Doo? Yeah, that's right. That's more like it. This is not the right side. Third time's the charm. I'll scratch the truck bed liner. Come on. Come on. There we go. Alright. How did I get that wrong twice? It's late. It's nighttime. There. Did it. One more. You might have noticed that I have zip ties holding my ABS sensor wire and my brake hose onto these steering knuckles. And I may have expressed in the last video that I wasn't too happy with the price of these steering knuckles. Now, against my better judgment, I bought them anyway, because I intend on boondocking in this rig, and I intend on getting back in there. You know, this is a rear-wheel drive van. It's not an off-road capable rig. But I thought that if I got a little more ground clearance and a little bit bigger and more capable tires, you know, I'll play it safe. I'm gonna avoid sand and mud and snow, but I could go down some dirt roads, you know, some 2 tracks in the back country. And there's only one company that makes a product for rear-wheel drive Chevy Express and Savannas that allows you to lift the front of the van without changing your suspension geometry. which will make it a more reliable way to lift your van, and it should ride better. And they got the idea right, but they didn't engineer this entirely great. They did put provisions on the back side of this to mount your brake hose to, but it doesn't work. On this side, they actually drilled the hole. They threaded the wrong hole. But the shape of this knuckle does not allow you in any way to use your stock brake hose. And even if you did get an aftermarket or different brake hose, you still have no way to secure your ABS wire to it. And I got on their YouTube channel and started watching some of their how-to kind of tutorial videos. And I didn't really see one for this cast version, but for their more expensive, like fabricated version, they tell their customers literally to zip tie your brake hose to the knuckle. And I feel like that is just a very unsafe thing to tell people to do, you know. And I disagree with that 100%. I've made a point not to mention the company that I bought these from, and, you know, I'm not trying to offer any slander in this video, but I want you to be aware that it's my personal opinion that this is a good product and it gets the job done, and it does allow you to lift the front of your rear wheel drive Chevy van without messing up the suspension geometry, and it's the right idea. But I do believe that it is worth maybe half of the price, and it's not engineered correctly. So just so you know. And you know, if you really want to do the kind of the same thing that I'm doing, and I really could not afford this. I basically set myself back a whole month financially to buy these, but you could go to like Real Truck, for example, realtruck.com. They sell a lift kit for these, but it's a 3-inch spring spacer in the front and then 2-inch blocks in the rear. So if you just want some more ground clearance and you want to run a bigger tire, you could try that. I don't think it's a good idea to do it. Like I said, from my experience, putting the cheap poor people version of a lift on my Chevy truck, I had to replace my ball joints all the time, because by doing that, you're basically dropping these two control arms down, and then you're putting more of an angle on your ball joints. And then also you're going to have a really stiff ride because you're compressing your spring. And I think you would probably end up needing bigger shocks, longer shocks in the front if you did that. So, you know, I'm trying to just be as honest as possible with this whole van build and show you guys like the struggles that I go through with it, the things that I've learned and figured out along the way. So, you know, you hopefully can, whatever you take away from these videos, other than hopefully some entertainment, is what to do or what not to do, or what will work and what won't, and whatever. But now I'm going to put my old crummy ugly ass wheels back on the front, get it back down on the wheels, and figure out just how much lower it is in the back now, because I'm trying to get the van level. And I have an aftermarket off-road bumper that me and my friend mocked up on the van yesterday, and he's welding it all together for me right now. And he's selling me a worn winch to put on the front of the van. So I'm gonna have about 200 pounds extra weight in the front. And in the back, I have a receiver hitch that I'm going to install. And I intend on running a fold away, swing away cargo basket with like maybe a truck toolbox in it, so I can store things that I don't want or won't fit in the trunk of the van, the cargo area that I built, like trash, firewood, extra water, a jack, things like that. So I'm going to get it down on all four wheels now, take some measurements, think about those things that I just mentioned, because those will weigh the van down one side or the other, and then decide which size lift blocks that I need to get the van level. Because I'm really happy with the rear springs and the shocks back there. I haven't actually even driven it yet, but just from what I can tell, it's not gonna be too soft, it ain't gonna be too stiff. I really like the way it feels. It feels just like a nice truck would. And I'm planning on keeping the springs that I put in the back. But I think I need anyway, bigger blocks in the rear. Now all of the companies like this one and Real Truck, for example, there's only a few companies that sell a lift kit for these vans, but they all pretty much, when you do a 3-inch lift, they sell you provisions to put 3 inches in the front and then 2 in the rear. And that's kind of what I was going off of. But since I'm kind of doing weird things with the leaf springs and the fact that this isn't really a normal van, you know, and it's fully built out at this point, so there's a lot more weight in the rear than, you know, those companies are probably basing that lift block in the rear recommendation off of like a stock Chevy van, like a cargo or passenger van that's not fully loaded, which I don't think my build is really that heavy. I kept weight in mind the entire time, and I'm still gonna weigh the van and make a video of it and show you guys exactly what my build weighs, empty and full of all my crap. So stay tuned for that. I am going to do that very soon, after I'm all done here, within the next month. But you know, I'm getting this dialed in just right, but I do believe I will need to put 3, possibly even 4-inch blocks in the rear to get it just right. And they sell up to like 5-inch blocks for these in the rear, but you do got to keep some certain things in mind when you go real crazy back there with lift blocks. You got to make sure your drive shaft isn't pulled out of the back of the transmission too far, because if you were like really going hard off-road and bouncing the back, if it came out all the way, your whole drive shaft would fall out. And then you just got to think about like the way things flex and move back there. I want the axle to be pretty stable, but I'm thinking 3 or 4-inch blocks, but we're about to find out together. I'm gonna get these wheels on, get it back down on all fours, and just see what it looks like. It's gonna be like a friggin' lowrider probably. It's gonna look like it's doing a wheelie. Hell, she don't look too bad, actually. It's actually Kinda level. Wow. You gotta be kidding. It's level. Get out of town. What? I might get 3-inch blocks. It's like, I think once I put more weight in the back, it'll be, yeah. Yeah. 3 in the front, 3 in the rear. That's the recipe. I'm gonna try 3s anyway. Like I said, I'm putting like a couple 100 pounds more in the front, but I'm putting quite a bit of weight in the rear. So if 3s aren't enough, I'll do 4s, but no more than that. So I just want it level, and I want it to ride good. So I still have the same spring rate as I always had in the front, but hopefully it'll be a little nicer with them new shocks. And those are not the best shocks in the world, but we've seen how easy they are to replace. So if I can get a couple of years out of them. The 2-inch blocks that I bought for the rear were like 40 bucks on Rock Auto. And then the 3s, 4s, and 5s are all like 56 something. Anything more than 3 though, I think I'm gonna need longer U-bolts. But either way, it's I can play around with that, and it's not a ton of work to change them blocks out, you know. Just do one side at a time, support the van with the jack stand, support the axle with a jack, undo those U-bolts, drop it down, get the other block in there, put it back, try it out. So I'm gonna get that ordered, get those in, get this thing aligned, and then put my new wheels on. And it's gonna look really good with those and the bumper. And I'll fix the paint and other things. I have a roof rack that I'm gonna be putting up there to mount my spare tire to, because I bought 5 full-size wheels and tires. The next video, I'm going to replace my steering pump and the steering lines. And then I'm just getting into all the tune-up stuff after that. It's just gonna be all kinds of like mechanical tune-up things. And then very soon you're gonna see that bumper. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys. I hope you have a great week. And I post twice a week now, or at least I have been. I'm trying to. So turn on notifications and you know, subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends. I don't know. Like, share, all them YouTube things that help my channel get out there more. And I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video. Have a good one.